So team, today we're working on the S600, and when I say today I mean over the next 4 weeks or so probably, hopefully no longer than that. We're working on the S600 and we're taking the motor out. So this car's got the V12 M275 and it's developed a little bit of an oil leak over the years. It's never been a major, but it's annoying enough now that I want to get it fixed. It's also got a bit of a coolant leak as well, so that's far from ideal. I've replaced already the turbo coolant seals as well as oil seals on the top of the turbos, but it's still leaking somewhere. I've replaced also the heater core valve that controls the water flow into the AC system because that was leaking. But we still have a little coolant leak too. Because I use this car for weddings and other events like airport transfers as well in my spare time, I need to make sure it's 100% reliable. Now don't get me wrong, this car is so reliable for what it is. For a 400,000 New Zealand dollar, you know, top of the line S class of the V12 twin turbo, it's extremely reliable. It's literally, it's only left me stranded once. The only Mercedes to ever leave me stranded is this one, and it was just once when the ignition regulator, what was it called? I think the voltage regulator on the top of the motor failed, and I could have driven it home, but apparently that damages the catalytic converters and everything from misfiring. But other than that, team, it's been the flippin' best car ever. It's been such a good car for a V12. So anyone there who thinks Mercedes are unreliable and pieces of shite, think again, because they are real good cars if you buy a good example like mine and maintain it. So yeah, a bit unfair here. I've got a hoist obviously, so it helps a lot. But basically we're going to drop the motor out, we're going to drop the gearbox out, we're going to replace, pull the heads off, and we've got all our lovely parts here that we're replacing on the M275. Just to name a few parts, we've got new timing chain guides. This is all stuff I'm just sort of doing preventatively. We've even got new coolant lines. I've got a new reservoir coming as well. We've also got rebuild kits for the blow-off valves, or the diverter valves you could say, on the turbos. So that's the part number there for them. We're going to go through all of them as we go. The first job is to pull the motor out, and I think from memory, team, this is the part. This is the leaking part in the middle of the valley. That little sucker there is our culprit oil O-ring that causes the major leaks on the floor. Usually the car's parked here and I've got a tray under it, but there's usually like a, you know, there's my gumboot. There'd probably be a patch about that big after a couple of weeks. So not too major, but still annoying. So let's lift her up and let's get started. Right everyone, she's up on the hoist, sitting nice and steady. And to compliment and to say, sorry for the car to say hello, it's already left its first little oil drip within a few minutes. Now look at this, team, look how dirty this is. Wow. It's definitely worse than it was when I sort of last checked it a while ago. Yeah, not good. Not good at all. Look how wet that is. Starter motor there, which we may consider replacing. Turbo there. You can also see there's some oil residue in the turbo area here. And yeah, where the lines hook up, there's a bit of oil. On this side, can't really see too much in there just yet, but you can see the pink coolant marks as well. So, you know, there's definitely a lot of oil everywhere in this thing. So we're going to clean it up so it's like brand new again, and hopefully not have any more oil leaks. Even the pan, like the blower pan, look how wet it is. Again, up into the turbo there. That's a pretty big mess. We might just replace that. I've got a new one of those. I've left all the engine trays off since I last brought it up. But yeah. So there's a bit of a big job here, team, but it's going to be a bit of fun. You join me in and have a go at it. We've also bought new fog light, OEM fog light, because that one's cracked. $120 US later, but I guess that's not too bad. Good quality part. So I'm going to open up the WIS team and start looking into what needs to be done, but it will involve a lot of things. We'll be taking out the, we'll be taking off the main flex disc. We'll be taking off probably the whole exhaust. I'd imagine probably the whole exhaust. Or maybe if we're lucky, we could take off just the back, the front part. But I imagine it'll be the whole thing we have to take off. And then we can drop the whole subframe down onto a crate and continue working. We might also, while we're in here, just check and replace some control arms as well. Even just see what condition they're all in first. Sweet, let's go. Okay, 8 hours later. There's already a decent sized patch of oil there, as you can see. But surprisingly enough, there's another patch right there. Yay! Can you guess what's leaking? I'm sure you can now. Yay! Okay, our ABC strut's leaking on the right-hand driver's side here, which is just fantastic. But anyway, hey, it's done 180,000 kilometers. We can't expect it to not have, failed by now. So I'm glad, if anything, that it has failed while we've put it up on the hoist. So it's time to price up 2 ABC struts now. But at least it'll get that job done. On to pulling the car apart.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So team, the rear exhaust is out with the mufflers. If you can hear a dog yelping, it's my my mother-in-law's dog. It didn't get to go for a walk because it's got a sore foot, so it's not happy. Yeah. But yeah, basically undid the clamps, easy as that. Undo the clamps, put a bit of silicone spray on the mounting points, 2 for each exhaust and 1 middle here. And then basically, yeah, loosen those up. And then what I do is I push the exhaust forward gently, and then I unhook this one. And worst case, if you can't get it off, just zap the 2 bolts off, drop it down, and then once you've got that out and the back out, then I sort of tilt the exhaust down and then slide the 2 prongs off of these mounts here, and just make sure you've ideally got someone giving you a hand, or you're just ready to catch it, because it's not heavy, but it's just awkward. So when you're installing it, I'll definitely have someone help me install it. Cool. Now I want to hear what it sounds like with the exhaust off. So we're going to just give it a quick sound check, team, with the exhaust off. I really want to hear what a V12 sounds like in the flesh with no mufflers. It might sound crap, but yeah, let's lower it down and have a listen. And then we'll start taking these heat shields off. So we'll do that in a second. Let's continue. Wow, I don't know if you like that, but I like that. That sounded cool. That sounded like to me like an S65. Just a little unrefined, obviously, without the mufflers on it, but it sounded sick. It's the first time I've heard it with the exhaust off. What do you guys think? Anyway, let's get it back up in the air. So team, we've got the exhaust out. As you know, the exhaust sounds lovely without the mufflers on. What we've done now is we've detached these clamps up here that hold the downpipes to the exhaust port on the turbochargers. And it's quite a mission. At least first time it is anyway. So I've done the one on this side. This bank's easier. The bank that doesn't have the steering column in the way is a lot easier. Still hard, but easier. The steering column on this car, which is right-hand drive, it makes it hard to get to the screws there. On the camera it looks easy, but it's not that easy when you look at it in person. So I had to detach the steering coupling first, which I did via a bolt there and one on the knuckle there. I'll just show you it. Basically you take this out on the end, so that attaches to the what do you call it? That detaches to the steering rack, and that attaches to the knuckle that goes to the steering wheel. A little bit hard to get both of those out as well, but yeah, it just gives me enough room to get up into here to detach that sort of bracket or coupling that holds it in place. So now we've got enough room to disconnect that there on each side. There's another bolt, and then our bolts that attach to the cross member of the transmission and our retainer clip here. But I'm just going to try and drop the whole thing out in one piece. So I'm just going to now detach these bolts and these here, and just put a block of wood in there, hold that in place, and not take the whole exhaust out. So here, the front part of the exhaust is out. Bit of a mission, because you've got to detach the O2 sensors from the top of the engine, and then the downstream sensors are just nested in the on the transmission couplings in here. But yeah, you've basically got to get it detached from the top there, so it's a little bit of a pain in the ass, and you can definitely tell this is a tighter engine to work on than the likes of the E55, if you've seen those videos of me pulling the gearbox out of the E55. There's a lot more room, whereas this motor is, yeah, it is jam-packed in there. So we're just gonna call it a day now, but we'll come back and start pulling more of it apart tomorrow. At least we've got the exhaust out now, so we can get some better access to everything. But yeah, we'll have to get that flex disc decoupled as well. Cool, back soon. Right Tim, we're going to take the wheels off now and get it back in the air so we can start pulling off some of the brake lines and other miscellaneous things, as well as the fender liner covers. Right team, we're going to now take the pressure out of the ABC system via these little nozzles on each side. We'll just crack the bolt, let the pressure out, and then tighten them up again. Right team, now we've got the fender liners out, you can start draining some of the coolant out. So we've got two systems. We've got the low pressure turbo cooling system, which uses this intercooler pump here. So apparently we undo this connection here and pull the hose off to basically drain that system, okay? So we're going to do that. Conveniently, we've also got the two big nuts here for the oil cooler, so we can detach those. I actually have a brand new one of these pumps in the shed here, so we're going to install a brand new one just for the sake of it. This one still works from memory, so it'll just go in as a spare part we can use if we ever have a E55 again, or another V12 that needs an intercooler pump, but we'll put a brand new Bosch unit in. So we're going to drop that out now, and And then we'll drain the oil out of the system, and then at the end of doing that, then we'll actually detach the oil cooler line. So we'll do that later, but first let's get on to basically removing this pump. So team, we've drained the water pump. Now we're gonna take this clip off by pulling this top clip here down into the secondary position. Don't pry it from the bottom, you're not supposed to pry it from the bottle. Then we can pull this out and dump the coolant in. Before you do that though, team, make sure you've got the caps released so there's like the air can get through, so it's not gonna hold it in the system. Cool, let's go. So the coolant's drained from the system. I thought these clips were going to be a bastard, but it's the first time I've used one and it's so easy. You literally just shift the little clip and then just gently pull this back out. So much better than a normal clip, you know, anything like that. So I love those now. Awesome. It's like a quick coupling sort of setup. So we've drained that, we've detached the water cooler. And we've also cracked these lines here, the oil cooler lines. I'm just not going to fully take them off yet. That one's already starting to weep a bit. I'm not going to fully take them off yet because I want to drain the engine oil first. And then I'll bring that oil bucket under here because right now this is just catching any excess coolant for a while. So yeah, let's drain the engine oil. We've cleaned the container that it's going into because I want to make sure it's good quality. It's nice and clean so we can get a good quality check on the oil, make sure it's clean for a progress, because I'm scared there might be some metal particles in there. Yeah, cool. So we're gonna start draining this and come back after lunch. So team, it's sort of finished draining now, which is good. What we're gonna do is move on to undoing these little lines here, the ABC lines. So you'll see the valve block for the ABC system is fixed to the chassis rails essentially. So we want to make sure the subframe here that we drop doesn't hold these lines, so we need to undo those. And I think we need to undo, I think there's one more somewhere, or it might just be those two. So just a little Torx bit will do that. Then what we're going to do is move on to, I had it highlighted on the WIS. What did we say? What are we working on now, team? We are working on, hello. Great, my computer's like dead. Oh no, there we go. Yeah, so we're gonna disconnect the engine harness, remove the vacuum lines from the brake booster, and also remove the steering fluid reservoir, or empty it, and just some of these other lines as well. So we're going to get on the top of the engine. We'll just do those first two clips at the bottom and then move on. Are you serious? Are you actually? So team, that was pretty hilarious. When I look at the video now, I cocked up real bad. So the it had come loose from the mount, and I didn't realise. So as you saw, as soon as that final line came off, it basically let go of the intercooler pump and dropped it in the oil. It should be fine, maybe. It only sat in there for like half a minute. I've already cleaned it with brake cleaner and stuff, but it's pretty hilarious. That is definitely a mechanic funniest home video, I think, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, now I've got a beautiful mess everywhere. Surprisingly enough, there's drips here, but if we look on the E55, there's not a mark on it. Oh wait, there's one. There. That's it. So that's good. There's no splashes on the E55, but there's a few splashes everywhere else, so again, another rookie mistake, but that's all good. It's all part of it. Hope you found that funny. So still a bit of oil comes out of the system. You know, it's not just, it's more than I thought. So you want to make sure it drains it all out. But just be careful with these lines. You don't want to bend them or anything or break any of the seals on them. So those are loose. We're just going to loosen up as well. Ugh. Okay, time to get the cloths out. We just want to loosen up as well these ABC clamps and just the ones back here, just so this line's a bit freer to move around. Yeah, I'll clean that up. Great. And then we'll probably bring the car down and start doing the wiring harness like we mentioned. Cool, so it'll take me now to clean this up now. Great. So team, while we're up here, we're just undoing this line here and this line here, which is part of the turbocharger cooling system, or the low pressure cooling system. And we've taken the expansion tank line off the top of the thermostat, which goes into the reservoir. I've bought two of these pipes brand new. Like, these are actually in pretty good condition really, but we've got brand new ones. We're going to throw the old tank out. So brand new tank, brand new coolant lines there. We've undone the main water pump, thermostat. I imagine it's probably an outlet or an inlet. I don't know. I'd say an outlet. That goes into the radiator, so that's off. No coolant in there, obviously, that we've drained everything. So now we're just getting into the electrical system. It's pretty gnarly. So you need a hex drive. I've got one on my ratchet. There's 4 screws. And it's weird, so the ECU is built into the cover. So we're going to have to take that off very carefully. And also, there's just a couple of plugs here, but that's it really. There's just, I think, 2 or 3 main harnesses into the ECU, then a couple into the circuit board down there, into the fuse box, and then we can route the wiring harness out of the engine bay. Separated out through here, and I imagine we're going to also take the intercoolers off the engine, just to give us a bit more room to take some of the rest of the parts off the engine before we drop the engine fully out. So yeah, we'll work on this now. So team, we're in sort of the last steps of getting the whole engine ready to drop out. We're going to take the flex disc off now. So it's bolted on by four female Torx screws. They're quite big suckers, and we'll counter hold that with a wrench. First we're going to take off the cross member here though, which I think they're like 15mm or 14mm bolts. What we've done is we've just supported the pan here with the jack, and then we're going to take that off and remove our two bolts here that hold the transmission mount. Also looking at it, our ground is mounted here as well onto the mount itself, so we'll take those off too. I think they're about 14 or 15mm from memory. I might be wrong. It's either a 14 or a 15. It's probably a 15, I'd say. No, I am wrong. It's a 16 or a 17. And I don't actually have a 16 in there. Yeah, it's a 16. Okay, no, that's cool. For some reason, this fancy kit doesn't have a 16mm half drive, so we'll get the 16 out of here. I just love clips like this. You like try and get them off and they just like go back over the ledge. 16, there he is. That's better. And I imagine the one on the back here is 16 as well. Yeah, cool. Okay, that's good. So we're going to crack them. I would use the impact. I'm a bit scared to though. I'm just going to gently hand do them. We'll take them off and make sure we keep all 8 bolts. I probably won't bother lining up. I might just mark actually on the paint. Just mark where those rings are, because you can obviously change the angle, the placement of the cross member. So let's do that now. So now we're taking out we took the left harness off, now we're actually taking off the main power lines that go to the engine. And that'll give us enough room to get down here and take off the last coolant pipe that goes to the firewall. And then yeah, we've just got to do the AC lines still. But after that, it's pretty much all done. And we just need to disconnect the suspension and then we can start dropping it out. So let's get on to pulling this out. We're basically just removing this cable here and also the positive terminal, and I think it's this one, the opposite here. So team, we're just pulling out the old ABC struts. So yeah, this one conveniently popped. As you can see all the build up here, it conveniently popped just as I went to lift this car off the ground, as you just saw in the video earlier. So we've got 2 brand new ones coming from abcspecialists.nl. So I'll give you guys a review on that once they arrive. They're about 2,200 euros delivered to New Zealand for 2 front struts, so not cheap, but they look like they're very good quality and have good reviews. Anyway, what we're doing is we're pulling the old ABC lines off, and there's a special tool for that, but I don't have that obviously. Got a few tools, but not that one. So what I've used on the 221 is a 19mm wrench. And we're going to do this side still. It needs a lot of patience, but you basically need to slot the wrench under this little metal ring, which is very brittle and, well, not brittle, but very easy to bend and manipulate. As you can see, it's bent up real badly. I'm trying to figure it out, but you basically want to put this in underneath it and then push up, and you'll see there's a little red O-ring that starts to appear. You can probably just see it popping through there. You want to push it up, and I think to get it loose you'd want to do it repeatedly. So push it up and then lock this back down again. It's like a little sleeve, up and then down, up and down, until it gives you enough to push it up, and then you'll be able to pull this bottom connector out. And the bottom connector, it's the little metal sleeve. There's a little black like rubber gasket, but it's quite thick. It's like, as you can see, it's about 5 mil, 6 mil long. And once you get it over that, then you can slip this out. And I actually don't know where the orange O-ring is. It might be right at the bottom or something, but I can't see it actually on the slip here. I don't know if it fell out, but I don't think it did. But you need to manipulate it a few times. I was going to replace these ABC hoses because I bent that little metal ring around the edge. You know, you can see this one's quite bent up. Zoom in a bit. See, it's quite bent up there. But looking at the whole assembly, even if this is bent up, it's not actually going to affect the sealing of the system. So I usually like things looking perfect, and if I do something like this, I like to replace it. But for, you know, for like $150 US a piece for each side US, for the ABC lines that go to the valve block, I'm not going to go and replace them just because of that. I am going to replace, however, the little green O-ring that you saw on the seals. So I'll order those today at the top here, the little O-rings, and I'll gently pry those off with a little pick, and then we'll replace them with brand new ones before we insert them into the new ABC line that connects to the strut. Cool. So let's pull the other side out and then drop these struts fully out, because they are going in the bin. Well, not the bin necessarily, but we're gonna put them aside until someone else can rebuild them or something. So both ABC lines are off. We're just giving this a bit of a degrease and clean here, so I've sort of started to clean all this gunk off. I think it's just road mud, and possibly a combination of some ABC sort of fluid that's obviously built up around the base of the strut there. But what we're going to do is, yeah, just try and get rid of all the little bits of gunk in here. I've got the air compressor, so I'll chuck a mask on and maybe just blow it out a little bit. Before we do that though, we're actually going to take the struts out, so we've got more room to tidy everything up behind it. So we're going to drop the car down and undo our top 3 bolts, and then we're just going to give it a gentle tap with the mallet on the strut here, and because these are already loose down here, so they should just sort of pop out, I'd like to hope. Then we'll start cleaning it up again. So team, as you can see, we've taken out those old ABC shocks, and they have like a little orangey, I don't know what it is, it's probably some sort of like padding thing, and obviously as you can see it's disintegrated to nothing over the years. So these are probably definitely well due for their refresh. I don't know what year these shocks are. There's nothing that's saying anything directly to me, but I imagine they are like the factory 2007 build. 2007 build ones. So we've got our engine bay looking a bit more empty now. What we're going to do now is take out the ABC system, reservoir. We've taken out the steering tank already. So we're going to suck everything out first, and then we're going to disconnect the main hose, which is here. And I believe there's another hose going in somewhere, and the main hose connects to the pump. So we're going to pull those off and cover those up carefully. And yeah, so to get this cap open, first you got to take these off, and then it'll give you enough leverage to sort of pry the plastic tank away from this guard. I think they put this in here to stop people screwing it up and putting the wrong thing in the wrong place. It's quite interesting actually. Yeah, they really don't want you opening this up. It is quite a big tank, and you want to make sure you don't spill any dust or anything in there. Now we do have a filter in the system already. I'm probably just going to end up replacing it with a brand new one that I've already got on the shelf. Even though this filter is probably only a year and a half old. Yeah, I might put it in a bag and just seal it in a bag like this, for example, a clean bag, and you can pull it out again later and use it. Or this bag's got holes in it, so no, I'll get a bigger fresh bag. Yeah, so we'll start doing that now. So we've pried this out, team, out of the little holder there, undone that nut, and also that one down there. Then we can actually take this metal bracket out of the way to get us full access to the tank, and then also to subsequently pull the tank out. So team, we've taken off the ABC main feed line at the bottom here, which is down the bottom here. Taken that off, and now we've got this long extension that connects to the refrigerant pump, the AC compressor. We're undoing that and taking that off. I have actually decided to leave this tank in place. We actually don't need to take it out, but we have fully drained it into waste containers. And yeah, there's our filter. So just so you know, the filter is connected to the cap. It's the same filter that's on the older generation of ABC systems, just so you know. And this is the bracketry that holds it in place. There's only two metal nuts that hold that system in place, and it clips into the bottom there and to the top of the tank. The tank itself is held in there. Cool, so let's crack this line off. So team, we're making progress on the top end. Everything's pretty much undone. So there's a little apparently refrigerant line here that's got an annoying bloody one of these annoying clamps on it. See? And it hooks over there, and you use a tool like this to undo it normally. This tool here does those clips, undoes them and does them up. But this one had like a little weld or something, or a solder to like stop it from being undone, which was a pain in the ass. So I had to use a rotary tool to grind it off, to then get that off. So if you don't have a grinder tool, you might just have to sort of, I don't know, use some real sharp pliers or something to try and cut that little weld, and then you can use a flathead to pry this lip off of this little nook here. Okay, so big line of detached, little refrigerant line detached just here. We've detached the full hose for the power steering that attaches to the power steering reservoir, which we've gone through. We've detached the main tank feed to the ABC pump. We've also undone the first upper feed line for the transmission, and that uses a sort of a very good, actually, I was a bit worried to start with, a very smart little clip, little pin that goes, that locks the pipe in place, so you don't actually have to undo any big bolts like you can see there. There's this little plastic cover that covers a little groove that has a pin in it, and this retains the actual transmission cooler line, so it's easy to take out. So now we need to lift the car up and do the bottom one, the return line, I believe it is, and then actually we've got everything pretty much. We're ready to go. We just need to detach the one line finally that attaches the ABC pump's pressurized ABC fluid feed to the valve block in the front left, or the bank 2 side of the engine. So we just need to detach that. But yeah, so it's basically this feed line below here, the feed line there, and I think that's it. So we're just going to lift the car up and go underneath now to do that, and just have one final check before we get to the big moment. Hey team, so transmission cooler lines are off. Very simple job. Just make sure you don't lose your little pins that retain them, so I'm just going to put them in a bag now. Now, one issue is this bloody this front strut, this control arm, this sort of front control arm. The left hand side gets hit by the bloody ABC front axle dampener, pulsation dampener. What the heck's it called? Not pulsation dampener. The pulsation dampener's on the pump. I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, it's one of the common failure points on the ABC system. It's just a big bulb that holds pressure and it sort of balances out shocks in the road from the front end struts. But yeah, we have to loosen this off and pull it out because this is in the way here. This is no good. So if I pull that out, then I can actually take this arm off like I've done on this side. So you'll see we've dropped the arms off out of their carriers, out of the axle carrier from here. And we've just split them out left and right. Now apparently this is fine. I thought this would put too much weight on the upper control arm, but apparently from a few videos I've seen plus the workshop manual, this is a acceptable way to do it. So you know, we're going to do it that way. Cool, so I'm going to pull this off, pull this out, and then put this straight back on. And we won't torque it, we'll just tighten it up so it doesn't leak or have anything in the way. And then we'll come back to it and do the same thing when we reinstall the axle. So team, we've got the trains lines unhooked. We've got our 4 jacks in place. What we also need to do is get our trolley jack bags there and chuck it under the cross member there with a block of wood so we have the transmission supported. Then we can essentially undo all the bolts, the main bolts, and then we can start lifting the engine out. Lifting the car off of the engine. So that will just be a slow progression of lifting the car up and making sure nothing's caught or in the way. I'm not expecting it to be too tricky though, to be honest. I think I've got everything pretty well covered. So we'll just drop it just slightly more, and then we'll get on to that part, the final part of getting the engine separated, which will be the end of part 1. So team, we've got some extra safety because damaging these mags definitely won't be the worst thing if this thing falls on me. So we've just got some extra protection here. We've also got the jack set up now under the car, holding the transmission at the pan. We've dropped the rear cross member for the transmission. So now we've literally just got to undo these bolts here, up in here, on back here. Now most of the weight is on the back part of the back part of the jacks. So we're going to just take their bolts out first, and then we're going to take these bolts out. And before we lift the car, I'm just going to slightly jack up the transmission more to sort of bring a bit of weight onto these front jacks. Now I haven't removed any of the radiator cooling fan or anything because there is actually clear room for this to slide through. So I don't see the need to, but in saying that, if something changes, we'll take it out anyway. Cool, so we're going to undo these bolts now, so we're fully detached from the car. Probably can't hear me team, but here's our bolts, front bolt, back bolt, off the nodule there, separated here. When we put it back in, we're going to want to do the front screws first, just to get that kink out. Right now it's sort of coming in like that on a slight angle. This part's close, this part's quite big, so we just want to be aware of that. But yeah, we can start lifting it up, I think. So team, the engine is out, which is real exciting. You know, this is the fun part. This is where we get into pulling everything apart. So engine's still sitting on the subframe. There's our steering shaft. Engine mounts are still there. All our lines are still in place. We've got our tie rod, oil cooler lines, and yeah, here's our big coil packs. So we're going to unplug all of this. Basically, we're going to strip the whole engine of all of its components. So there's quite a lot to get through. The first thing would probably be taking the belt off, starting to disassemble some of the vacuum lines, the voltage regulators, the intake manifold, and getting all that opened up and put away, so that we can then sort of get into these valve cover areas. And then we can progressively work our way down as well. So yeah, probably start by taking the belt off. I'd like to see what the water pump sounds like. We're probably going to take it off anyway and just reseal it. But if that's damaged or if it's worn, obviously we're going to have to replace it. You know, our alternator looks a little concerning. It looks a bit old to me. Maybe we need to get that done. I'm not sure. You know, it probably is due though, let's be honest about it. We also need to remove our crank pulley. That's going to be real fun. It's also getting a bit old, eh? It's got this seal around it, like this rubber sort of dampening seal. You know, I might just have a little bit of research and see when it's likely due for a replacement, because it looks pretty gnarly. I know that won't be a cheap part either, but it's alright. We've already got a new hose for here, water pump to the thermostat. Yeah, we've got quite a few new parts, as you may know already, in our parts box. Cool, so let's get the belts off. What we're going to do first is I'm just going to take a photo of everything. Take photos from the front, the sides, the top, the bottom, just to make sure when I put it back together I can sort of spot anything specifically that I need to look at. Cool, let's do that first. So team, that wraps up part one, where we pull the motor out of the S600. We've just taken the front belt off. We're getting into part two now. Go check out that video when it comes out, pulling the engine apart, basically back to where we have access to the center valley where the oil's leaking from. And yeah, we can then start part three, where we put it back together again. Anyway, thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.